Okay, got the Daisy 880 out today and doing some shooting on these Beeman silver bears. These have been around forever, for decades, but they're reproduced by other companies called different names, and like H&N has their own version, so does Daisy. But anyway, about 7.1 to 7.2 grains, very fast pellet. It's kind of a mix of a pellet. It's kind of like a do-all pellet because it's a wad cutter, it's a hollow point, and it also has a little bit of tip right there. I don't know if you can see the tip on that. So it's kind of like a pellet that they designed that can do everything. And believe it or not, these penetrate very well too, and glycerin soap when I tried these. And they go really deep, and yet it gives you some kind of expansion too. So it's a really decent all-purpose pellet. That's why they made these. That's why I think Beeman made these, is some kind of all-purpose pellet that's fast. And so it's got a pretty flat trajectory, but it's got the ballistic coefficient of kind of like a wad cutter. So, but anyway, let me show you my results here. And the whole basis of this test is to take 10 shots, because just taking a few shots you can get lucky grouping really well, but if you take 10 shots, then you can tell really how the rifle is performing. And that's one of the reasons why I love the 10 shot grouping whenever I can afford it. Expensive pellets, it gets kind of hard to do sometimes, but these cheaper ones here that are about $5 for 500, you can really do a lot of experiments in shooting. So here's what I did. This is bench rest at 15 yards, and what I did is I decided to see what speed these like. Now your rifle might be different than mine, but I'm just testing mine so that if you buy this Daisy 880, you might have an idea of what your pellet's going to do if you get a scope similar to mine. So, or even just shooting with the factory sights. So, but anyway, let's start out with 2 pumps here. So we tried the 2 pump speed, and if you look at this, it tells you everything you need to know. 15 yards, 386 feet per second. 75% of the shots were .750 in measurement. This is a 1/4 inch dot here. This is my aim point, so you can ignore that. So we got 1 1/8 inch for all of these, and then whenever you see 70%, that's what you're going to get 7 out of 10 shots for this. So that's why I like the 10 shot group, is you can go by percentages. So there's 2 pumps right there. Another thing that's important to tell you guys is 2 pumps will get out to 40 yards with a good scope. So even though it's a slow moving pellet, it can still get out to 40 yards, maybe in 50. So there's 2 pumps right there. Then we increase the speed to 469 feet per second. And there we are, increasing the speed right there. Then we increase the speed a little bit more. Now we're at 579 feet per second. Or no, 519, sorry about that. Then we go up to 5 and we start noticing some really good groupings here. One thing I wanted to mention too is these are clean bore sets. What I mean by that is I clean the bore before I fire the 10 shots. So these are 10 shot groups. So here we got 570 feet per second right here. And then 6 pumps, even a little bit better. Now, if you see this one right here, that was me. Whenever you're shooting pellets and stuff, sometimes it's hard to tell, what the flyers are. So I wouldn't even stress over it. What you're looking for is in a 10-shot group is how well they group together. So you could call that one a flyer, you can call it you with your breathing or your trigger or whatever, but usually close ranges like that, that's not the case. Usually it's either the pellet or the rifle, because you're able to lock down the rifle pretty good or have a good bench rest setup. So this one was me, by the way, because what I did is I had my finger on the trigger and I slipped a little or something. The trigger, I wasn't holding the trigger right, so the shot went off before I even put my mill dot on here. So I was using the mill dots to aim right here. So I placed my mill dot on there, and that one went off a little. But the rest of them I could say that I was perfectly steady, except for this one right here. So, but it's nice to use a mill dot reticle or a crosshair to aim for your aim point, whatever you prefer. Some people like putting a dot over a dot, but that's a 1/4 inch dot right there. So anyway, let me read off some data, as they would say in England, or research in the back here. So what we got is scope center to bore is 2 inches, and this is a 10x scope. It goes up to 10 power. What I mean by scope center to bore is, for if you guys are using Hawk software, which I recommend online, Hawk Scopes, you download their software so that you can get an idea of your trajectory and your drops and stuff like that. But the center of the bore to the center of the scope is 2 inches. So right there, so that's 2 inches. So you'd enter that in the Hawk software to get your ballistic drops and stuff like that. But you have to have the ballistic coefficient entered in too. So just by you guys being close up here, you could probably read all this. But anyway, muzzle velocity 603 feet per second. This is with 6 pumps. At 15 yards, we measured 525 feet per second with the Crony. Gives us a ballistic coefficient for that 15-yard mark of 0.013, and that's typical of your wad cutters, plus or minus 0.01 or 2. The muzzle energy was 5.81 foot-pounds at muzzle. At 25 yards, we got 3.59 foot-pounds of energy. So I recommend if you're doing squirrel hunting, you want to be point-blank range with 6 pumps, or pump it 10 times. And at 25 yards, you should end up having almost about 5 foot-pounds of energy for a squirrel. That's if you think 5 foot-pounds works for you. So, but yeah, that's just for you hunters and stuff like that. So you know kind of like what you need, you know. But so anyway, let's get to the trajectory part here. So I'm going to move this up a little bit so I can see it myself. So according to the Hawk software, and even if you did a paper test, the best place to sight this in at is sight it in for 15 yards, because that's going to give you the flattest trajectory. So the pellet's is going to shoot super flat out to, if you look on here, out to about 25 yards. So you're going to get a really flat trajectory for that pellet for 6 pumps. If you look at 25 yards there where that arrow is, it says minus 0.22, so that's about a 1/4 inch drop there at 25 yards. And then if you look at the 1/4 MOA, most scopes are 1/4 MOA. That means that you're going to have to click the turret up 3 times. And then at 40 yards, you got a 3.55 inch drop, so that's about the length of a pop can, something like that. And you're going to need 33 clicks for that up. And then 50 yards, 8.32. And you're probably going to need about 63 clicks or whatever. There's a lot of scopes out there that have, you know, up to 100 MOA of adjustment going both in windage and elevation. So that's quite a bit. So that's an awful lot of clicks, which means that with 6 pumps, you may be able to get this out to 75, maybe 100, depending on what you're holding over. But it's got the ballistic coefficient of a wad cutter, so it's because it's a lower ballistic coefficient, it's going to drop and stuff, so you're going to need a good scope to really get out there. You probably won't out to 50 yards, but once you get past 50, something that's like a wad cutter you're going to see a lot of drop and stuff like that. So if you look on the right side there, it says accuracy prediction, and this is based off the law of doubles. And what that is whatever you shoot, say like at 10 yards, whatever you do at 20, the groups will double, that kind of thing. So what we predicted here is 1 inch accuracy at 30 yards in ideal conditions with like no wind or anything like that. Now I'm indoors, so there is no such thing as saying, oh, the wind caught that shot, like this one here. Oh, that was the wind. Or, oh, that was, people making excuses, and that's why sometimes it's better just to take the shots and to not talk about the flyers and just leave them be, because a lot of times that's the pellet, the different weight or the skirt's dented. It could be a lot of different reasons. So these aren't precision pellets by any means, but they do very good. So if we got 1 inch groups at 30 yards in ideal conditions, that means that the 1 inch hunting standard that people use, say like over in England at 25 yards, everybody wants a 1 inch standard for 25 yards for hunting when it comes to, say, like rabbits or whatever. So that's the unofficial hunting standard, is 1 inch groups for 5 shots at 25 yards. I don't know if I made it a standard or if I'm just repeating what people in England say about it, or people in the US, but everybody has their own standard. But I think that's a great standard, is 1 inch groups at 25 yards. So that means this will do it, because of the fact that at 15 yards we got something like that. So that means the prediction that 30 yards we're probably going to get maybe an inch, in ideal conditions. So, but anyway, when you're testing pellets, I say the best thing to do, if you can afford it, I would say, clean the bore, oil the pad first, dry fire it about 10 times to clear the oils, clean the bore, make sure you keep track of your routine, because if you don't keep track of your routine, you might not know what condition your rifle is in. For instance, if you never clean the bore and you're shooting pellets and then you try a new pellet that you want to try, if your barrel's dirtied up or something, you're going to get different results than if you just went ahead and cleaned the bore. So what I like to do is do clean bore shots, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. It's a fresh, clean bore, and it was just basically a bore mop run through. And I clean my barrels quite a bit. So some of these people online that have rust in their barrel and a lot of grime and stuff like that, that's if you like cleaning your bore once in a while. But me, I clean consistently and all the time. So I've never had any problems with crud building up in the barrel or rust or anything like that. So anyway, there's that group right there. What I'm going to do is put them out on the table so you can get a kind of a perspective of what things are going to look like for different pumps. Now, this is my air rifle, my Daisy 880 my personal one. So now with you, you're probably going to get different results than me, but at least we have something to gauge what the 880's potential is. So I don't know if you can see the big picture here, but the number in the left-hand corner now is the number of pumps that I used for the rifle. So if you look right there, you can kind of get a perspective, and you can see that as you increase the speed, the accuracy gets better. Now that's not the case with some pellets, but these kind of impressed me. Once I started getting above 4 pumps, I was like, whoa, something good's going on here. So they're definitely worth buying these pellets. If they're only, $5 for 500, I would stock up for an apocalypse with these pellets if you could. One of the reasons why is because they have a very nice flat trajectory. Even though they're similar to a wad cutter, the speed is just, it's really nice for, even the low pumps, you look there, 386, that's, you're closing in on 400 FPS just, for that 7.2 grain pellet. So, and that's one of the reasons why it'll shoot really flat. So, flat shooting pellet. But you want to do this with all pellets if you can. You want to fire 10-shot groupings. Change up your pumps. That's one of the things about pump rifles, is it's more expensive for us that have pump rifles because we don't have one power. We can adjust our power, us pump guys. So I think I'm a pump guy for life. I love pump rifles. I love exploring them. I like finding out how to make them more accurate. I don't give up easy. But for the price that you pay for these rifles, these Daisy 880s, there's a good reason why they're the #1 selling air rifle, is because there's so many things about it. It's easy to pump, variable velocity, they're durable, they don't break down as much as Crossman's, the pumpers don't go out. Crossman doesn't have a felt wiper pad, and that's one of the problems with Crossman, is they haven't learned that their rifles, you have to oil them like all the time, constantly, because you look at your wiper and it's always drying up on you after like even 50 shots. I mean, that wiper, you got to put a couple drops of your 10, 20, 30 weight oil on it, non-detergent, and the oil just kind of disappears in them rifles. Whereas this one, the wiper pad, stores that oil for you. So let's see what we got here. I'm surprised there's not an explosion of Daisy lovers out there anymore. Back in the 80s, this rifle here was wanted by everybody. It was a rifle that all the kids wanted, including myself. I got my first one in 1986. So, oh no, not 1986. Excuse me. I bought a second one in 1986, but I got my first one in 1983. Believe it or not, and scared the crap out of my parents because I shot a board. I think it was a 3/4 inch pine board, and the pellet went through the other side, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, what did we get this kid? It's not a Daisy Red Ryder." So I don't know if we can give you a peek of the mil-dot reticle. We could, I suppose. Let's see. This is basically a Tasco varmint scope. It's a 4-10 by 40, I think, and it's a mil-dot reticle. So let me show you a little bit on the scope here what it looks like. Now the elevation is going to look just like this windage one here. Okay, there we go. These could be picked up for, I think, about $70, and probably on eBay you can find some of these scopes, and even the off-brand ones sometimes you can find for less money and stuff, and they still work okay. Now these scopes aren't necessarily air gun rated, so you don't want to put these in Magnum Springers. So anytime you get a Magnum Springer, you want to make sure an air gun scope is rated for shock, for that forward and reverse recoil. So you want to make sure you get the right scope. So there we go. Now another thing I wanted to talk to you guys too about parallax error. In simple terms, what parallax error is when you're looking in the scope like this, you see them shades of black around the edges. It's real simple. Parallax error isn't something real complicated where you need a 30-minute video on it. What you do is, to avoid parallax error, what you do is you make sure that when you're looking in the scope here, that them shades of black are gone, and you have a clear picture all the way around like that. once you see that black shade creeping in on you, even if it's just a little bit, you want to make sure that's not there. And that'll give you a parallax error. So you want to make sure you avoid that. That's the simplest thing you can do. Keeping your eye looking always at the same place every time you make a shot. But not only that, cheek weld. You want to make sure you have a good cheek weld. If you don't have a good cheek weld, I would recommend building it up so that your eye is going to be perfectly center on here. So that's why it's important when you set up your scope. You want to set it up for comfort. You don't want to be cosmetic and set it up for looks. You want to set it up for comfort. Whatever you have to do, even if the scope looks funny and it's too far back, you want to set it up for comfort as much as you can. So anyway, thanks for watching the video, you guys. This mount here, by the way, is called an offset UTG mount. It's 11 millimeter type fitting, and 1-inch tube. Rings are connected. This is all one solid piece, so it's not two pieces. This whole entire thing is one piece. And what's good about this is it comes off the Daisy 880 very, very quickly, and it does kind of look funny, but this scope can be used on the Daisy 880 and also the Daisy 35, so you can swap this out in like a couple minutes and you're ready to go. So that's why I love this UTG offset mount. And your fingers, you can get your fingers in there so you don't have to worry about bumping anything. The two-piece mounts are fine, you know, and stuff on these two, but I kind of like this mount. So it works with a lot of different types of air guns, so, and it's quick, so I like it a lot. But never use that on a Magnum Springer. Not even the scope, because it's not air gun rated. With Magnum Springers, you don't want that weight difference there that's hanging on the far back there. You don't want that. You want a good one-piece mount like a BKL, and you want to make sure that you watch that scope as you're shooting it when you first put it on a Magnum Springer so it doesn't slide on you, and put your Loctite on or whatever you have to do to keep it stayed on the scope or on the rail. But you never want to keep switching. Now I can keep switching this scope from air rifle to air rifle, you know, because the rails are all plastic like the Daisy 35. But whenever you're switching mounts and stuff, the more you tighten the mount, especially on the metal receivers, if you keep tightening, loosening, and switching guns all the time, what you're doing is you're messing up them threads in them in the mounts. So you don't want to stretch them threads. So usually the mounts, you know, what my belief is with the mounts is once you put them on, you leave them there, you know, on the metal guns, unless you have a plastic type gun like this with plastic receiver or whatever. But anyway, thanks for watching the video, you guys.